Hello. So, hello everybody. I'm WikiLucas 00. I'm an administrator and bureaucrat on Lingua Libre. I'm also a Wikimedian in residence on this project, and I'm happy to be talking and presenting Lingua Libre at this online Wikimania. It's my first Wikimania event, and I'm really glad to be here. I'll start sharing my screen. So we will just ask ourselves what is Lingua Libre and how to take part in it. First of all, I will just talk about the project and explain it in a nutshell. Then I will demonstrate how it works. We will look at its impact, and then it will be your turn if you like to. So the goals of Lingua Libre is to document oral linguistic diversity, and in order to feed the Wikimedia project with audio content, and to bring new linguistic communities to Wikimedia project. It originates from the French chapter, Wikimedia France, and was made with the help of contributors from the Wiktionnaire, some linguists and speakers of French regional languages, and Nicolas Vion, the creator of Stuka, which was a PC software made for recording pronunciations. And Lingua Libre was founded thanks to a project grant from the foundation provided to Odyssey and some funds from the French Ministry of Culture. It works like it's a wiki like other wikis. So it runs on MediaWiki, and it has its own custom skin, which is quite fancy, Blue LL. Wikibase is installed on Lingua Libre, which means we have one element for each speaker, one element for each language, one for each recording, and it allows us to make Sparkle queries on Lingua Libre. The main object of Lingua Libre is a MediaWiki extension, which is based on voice activity detection. It's called the Record Wizard. We'll talk about it later. And after that, all the files are sent automatically to Commons via OAuth authentication on behalf of the user. And the datasets can be downloaded in zip files, but it's a work in progress. They're not quite up to date. The advantages is to reduce the steps in the classic workflow for recording audio. So as you can see, usually you have to record words in a dedicated software, then to clean them in another software. Then you have to upload them one by one to Commons, and then you will have to edit each wiki you want to put them to. And on Lingua Libre, you just have to start the recording, pronounce the words one after the other, and the software, based on the voice activity detection, will just cut between your words, and then it will trim them and clean them and upload them automatically to Commons. And then there's a bot, I'll talk about it later, that will edit local wikis to add your pronunciations to them. So this bot is called, Lingua Libre bot. It's coded in Python, and you can see the code on GitHub. If you want it to work on your wiki, you just have to fill in a request on this page on Lingua Libre. And of course, it will need the bot status. So you will first have to start a discussion on your local wiki and vote for its status. I will now do a little demonstration of Lingua Libre. So you need a Wikimedia account for this. So if you're not logged in, it will just redirect you to Commons, and via the OAuth token, you will just allow Lingua Libre to interact with the Commons on your behalf. So you authorize your microphone. You can check if it if it's working. Test. I don't think you heard it, but I got a feedback telling me it's okay. Then you can just fill in a speaker profile. So as you can see, I have several speakers. That's very useful when you want to record several persons without having them to create a Wikimedia account. So I will just use my main speaker. So that's the default from my account. Here you can just enter the languages you speak. So now I'll be using English, and for each language, you can select a level of proficiency. So English is not my native language. I just said I was, I don't know, average or good speaker. Then you can select your place of residence and the license that we'll be using for on Commons for your files. The next step is choosing the words you want to record. So there are several ways. You can just enter them like this. So let's say dog, cat. And so if you just want to record a few words, it's okay to do like this. But we also recommend to use the other options here. So you can use a local list. I don't know, there's no list name fruit. For example, there's a list made by Olaf, a Polish Wiktionary contributor, which is edited by a bot, and for more than 70 languages, it just ranks the words that are described in the biggest number of Wiktionaries and that don't have audio pronunciations uncommon. So here you just see all the words. It's more than 300 words, and once, for example, once I record all of these words, like 4 or 5 hours later, the bot will just set the list with the other words that are not that don't have audios. So that's just too much words for now. You could also use the nearby option. You can just enter your coordinates, and it will just from Wikidata, it will just fetch the items around you. For example, a church or a hospital or a park, and you can just pronounce them, and it will go onto the item on Wikidata, thanks to Lingua Libre bot. You can also use a Wikimedia category, for example, linguistics from Wikipedia. You can also change the source. I'll just take 20 words, and then you can just record them. You can also choose a Wiktionary, but for now, I'll just enter some words manually. So for example, let's say fruits, apple, cherry, orange, lemon, I don't know, lime, pineapple. There's the possibility to shuffle the list. For example, if the list is in alphabetical order, you will have risks to have a list intonation, which is not wishable. So shuffling the list may help to have better audio in the end. And make sure you're recording in the correct language. When you did recordings with several languages, it's quite easy to make this mistake and let's say record the words that are actually in English and pronounce them in English, but with the wrong language set, and that could be a pity. Sorry, by doing this, I just erased the words. Okay. Let's go to the next step, the studio, the recording studio. So you just have to press once start the recording, and then you will see it will just trim between the words, and it's really easy to understand. So I'll start once, and I will just stop when it's over, when I'm the end of the list. Orange, cherry, grape, apple. So I did nothing with my hands, it's just went through the items of the list. I'll go to the next step. So I have the feedback in my headset. And I can just decide to untick a recording if I don't like it before sending them to comments. I could also go to the previous step if I want to re-record one recording. If the recording failed, one of the recordings, you just have to retry, and usually it's enough to pass through. Okay, so let's check the recordings and comments. So as you can see, they're here. And they have all the information about the language, that it comes from Lingua Libre. And there's a link to my QID item on Lingua Libre. Also, they're put in categories and comments. So you have here all the recordings from Lingua Libre in English, and you also have them by speaker. So for example, you have all my recordings here. Okay, I think it's okay for the demonstration. Let's go back to the main presentation. We'll look at the impact of Lingua Libre. So we'll talk first about Lingua Libre community. It's a worldwide community. As you can see, we have speakers on every continent, mainly in Europe. It's because it started in France. We had many workshops that took place, unfortunately, before the COVID crisis. So all around the world, like in Canada with Atikamek at 2017 Wikimania, some recordings in Cameroon for Wiki Indaba, and on the right you can see the team of Wikimedia France and some contributors of Lingua Libre. Excuse me. Looking at the statistics of Lingua Libre, out of more than 500 recordings and more than 120 languages, we can see that French language is still more than a third of all the languages, of all the recordings, and that more than 2/3 of our speakers are male. So the road to more to diversity is still long, but we have hope, and we want everyone's voice to be heard. Looking at the statistics of the total amount of recordings, we passed the 500,000 recordings last month, and as you can see, there's almost a 100% growth rate each year. So the total amount is almost doubling every year. Then we will look at the use, how the recordings are used in and out of Wikimedia projects. So on Wikimedia projects, they can be used to illustrate words or names on any project. So for example, names on Wikipedia, but words also on Wiktionaries. They're used on lexims, on Wikidata, anything you could think of. For example, on the left, on this, it's a dictionary from the Summer Institute of Linguistics of Kak. And some contributor just added recordings made with Lingua Libre. They added it to this page of the dictionary. On the middle, you have the French Wiktionary entry for the word forêt. So there's plenty of pronunciation there. And on the right, you have an example of a lexeme with the pronunciation by one of our most prolific contributors, Tito Duta. Outside of Wikimedia projects, the recordings are used, for example, on Mozilla's speech-to-text engine, which is called Deep Speech. I'm sure they are used as part of the French version of Deep Speech, among other datasets like Common Voice. They are also used on some dictionaries like Le Dico des Ados, which is a Libre dictionary for young people. So some contributors are recording words on Lingua Libre, and then they are using it on this dictionary. Also the Dictionnaire des Francophones, which I'm working on as part of my residence, will also soon be including some recordings from Lingua Libre to highlight the accents of the French-speaking world. On the right, you have what it should look like. And there's also plenty of perspective, like language learning apps, flashcards, for example, anything you could think of with our recordings. Do you have questions about this presentation before we go to an interactive session? I'll just go back to the StreamYard. So how does the application handle regional dialects in a different languages? Actually, there's a possibility to add any new language as long as it has a Wikidata QID. And for example, let's take the example of Occitan, which is a language spoken in some parts of France, mainly. There are several dialects of Occitan. For example, the Languedocien. Sorry, just click on the wrong. So here's the Wikibase of Lingua Libre. If we look at Languedocien dialect, there's a QID like other languages. So instance of it's just a language / dialect, so anything can work. And it has its own ISO 6393 code. And the recordings are categorized in this category, which is also part of the Occitan category. So indeed, there's the possibility to have information about dialects. Does the bot make any kind of pre-processing? I'm not sure I understand exactly the question. I'm sorry. The bot is working from the Wikibase. So it's just fetching the latest recordings, checking if they are already on, for example, the Wiktionary page. And if not, it will just add it. It works twice a day. And its maintainer is Poslovich, who presented Lingua Libre yesterday during the hackathon. How accessible is the project for someone without a high quality mic? We noticed that even using some recent phones, like smartphones, can be really end up with a good quality. So as Lingua Libre is accessible on mobile version, you can also you could record it from your cell phone if you don't have a high quality mic. The most important is to have a quiet room, like no noise from the street and from around, no television turned on in the background. But then there's no problem with using it using a cell phone or just your default built-in laptop microphone. So I think that answered how to record from mobile phone. You just have to go to lingualibre.org on your smartphone. There's no mobile app, but it's a mobile version of the website, which is quite accessible. There's a question in French, sorry, so I will just take the time to read it in French and translate it. So what's our experience with other linguistics communities from minority languages? There are recordings that are made from linguists, I think, and we talked about the projects to some linguists, some fieldwork linguists, but I'm not sure they did their fieldwork linguistics with really minority languages. But when we work with these communities, indeed we mainly use for the moment like short lists, like Swedish lists, and not full stories as you mentioned. Even though Lingua Libre can record texts, it's mainly used for short words, phrases, and maybe sentences, but for the moment it's more like list of words, and it's really efficient for reading lists of words. So the Swedish list, or I don't know if you have a lexicon of fishing in a specific language, you can just help the community reading it. But of course, you need someone to rely on to make this list first, because yeah, sometimes speakers don't know how to write in this language. So that's kind of a problem with we're facing with Lingua Libre. So that answered another question. You can record wiki articles from Lingua Libre. You just have to set the threshold of silence that triggers the voice activity detection. It's set on. It's really short, as we're recording a list of words. So you can just put it to 5 seconds or 10 seconds when you're reading full text. So it will not cut in the middle of your text. Are there checks for trolling? What if a malicious agent records a non-existent word? Actually, that's also a problematic question, and we are just beginning of treating this, like treating all the types of issues, in fact, that we can encounter with Lingua Libre. So we're kind of trying to make a patrol on Lingua Libre. Sometimes it's just we don't have much vandalism on Lingua Libre for the moment, luckily, but we have people that misuse the software. For example, as I mentioned, they record words in the wrong language. It's quite easy to make the mistake. I did actually one time. I recorded 100 words or 1,000 in with the language set on Finnish instead of French, and that causes some problems. Like for you have to rename all the files on Commons, and we're figuring out how to handle that. Actually, yes, it also deals with sign language. Sign languages, so French sign language, any sign language you can think of. There's if you just select sign language, the record wizard changes, and it will ask the permission for your camera, and you will just you will just be able to record words in sign language, and I think it works. You have to. There's no detection, so you have to cut between between each sign you're making, but then the videos are uploaded to Commons just as audio. what if a word is already recorded? You mean by a speaker, or like by the same speaker, or by another? If it has already been recorded by a speaker, and you still enter it to Lingua Libre, if you had already recorded, it will just reset the file on Commons with a new version. So that can be useful if you mispronounced. You just have to put it back to Lingua Libre and type it again, record it again, and it would just update on Commons. And if it has been learned, if it has been recorded by another speaker, that's the main goal of Lingua Libre, is to show the diversity. So it will add it to the Wiktionary or any project, at least on Commons, and you will have a diversity of pronunciation for the same word. There is an interest in atypical recordings, indeed. For example, you say you're French, but you live in a German-speaking part of Switzerland, so you probably have an accent like anyone, like everyone, and it's interesting. So you just have to type the place where you learned your language, your languages, and it will be interesting to hear how you pronounce words. Yes, there's an interesting question about words that are written the same but pronounced differently with different meanings. We handle that with parentheses. So you type your word, like for example, the letters L-I-V-E, so it can be pronounced live or live, depending on the word. You just have to type live, and you have to precise the meaning between the parentheses, and the bot, Lingua Libre bot, will still be able to manage and to put the file on the wiki. The bot that added pronunciation, I don't think it's broken. But if you have questions, precise questions about the bot, I invite you to ask them on Lingua Libre column bot on our website, or to ask them to Poslovich, which is the bot master of Lingua Libre bot. And I think it's working, but it's only adding recordings on Wikidata if you used Wikidata query. I forgot to mention that during the demonstration, but you can use Wikidata queries and PET-scan queries also to generate lists of words to record. And if you used Wikidata query, it will just automatically add the recordings to the corresponding lexeme. I don't know if there are new questions. So pre-processing follow-up, there's several easy ways to improve audio. Denoising, de-essing. Does the bot perform any of those? Actually, it's the software that processes the audio. Sorry, I misunderstood your question before. It's the software that does that. The bot is only only modifying wiki pages to just take the recordings from Commons and adding links on any wiki you want. How can we reach Lingua Libre? So you can. So the address is lingualibre.org, and it works like any wiki. And if you want to contact us, there's the chat room. But I'll just go back to the presentation soon to talk about this, to how you can be involved. Some last questions. So any pre-work needed to add pronunciation file to Wiktionary? If you want to manually add it, you just have to make sure your local Wiktionary uses a complete template for audio recordings. So a template that indicates at least the country and the place where the speaker is from, and and maybe the phonetic transcription. But if you want the bot to edit, you will have to describe us how it is supposed to edit, because it works differently on every wiki, and then we'll try our best to make it work on your wiki. You can also submit a commit on GitHub if you know how to code in Python and you want to do it by yourself, and we'll just review the code and put it on the ToolForge where the bot runs. It could work in incubator wikis, but for the moment it only works on a few wikis like French Wiktionary, Occitan Wiktionary, and soon some new, like it works on Wikidata, but we will be adding during the summer new wikis. We can use, yes, non-Wikimedia sources for words. I don't think there are special author rights on just a short list of words. So you can use, if there's a list like you mentioned on Twitter, you could use it as a source, but we'll have to prepare it for the record wizard. So I'll go back to the presentation to talk about how you could help us participating in Lingua Libre. I'll share my screen again. Share screen. So the whole content of Lingua Libre is can be translated. You can learn more at on Lingua Libre at help translate. So there's a part that is that can be translated on Translate Wiki for the interface of the record wizard, etc. There are also MediaWiki messages that can be translated, but though you have to pass by the administrators. So you can just submit us the text that we have to put on Lingua Libre. You can also translate, for example, welcome messages, etc., that we use for newcomers. You can help by creating lists in your own language. There's a page that explains, a help page that explains how to create lists. So, for example, if you want to create a list of fruits in English, it can be useful because, for example, if you ask for the category fruits in English from the Wiktionary, it will fetch the whole category with fruits that you don't even know. So it can be a problem when you want to record a list. And when it's done by humans, it's just the fruits that everybody will think of. But if you want to be exhaustive, you just have to you have to, like, using the Wiktionary category will be better. So if you want to make suggestions, the chat room is yours. And if you want to start technical discussions or just read about technical discussions, there's a tech board, Lingua Libre. You can click on all the links in the PDF version of this presentation that's already on Commons. There's a link in the Etherpad. As I said, you can help us improving the code of not only the Lingua Libre bots, but all our code are on GitHub. Sorry, and you can submit bug reports and feature requests on Fabricator. It's quite a full Fabricator, as many people are submitting the request and the bug reports, so we try to keep it tidy. There's the link to the form you have to fill in to request the bot on your wiki, and yes, if you want to get involved, the best way is to spread the word around you, spread the word about Lingua Libre on your local wikis, and to record your voice or other people's voice. So that's the next step. Some advice about recording words, voices. So Lingua Libre works best for the moment on Firefox. We're having issues on Chrome. It's not impossible to use it, but you might encounter some slight clicks, audio clicks on your file. So we try to figure it out. So please use Firefox for the moment to have full chances of good quality audios. So as I said, mind the noises around you. Turn off, for example, the sound of this session if you want to record in parallel. And you just have to follow the steps of the record wizard, or just read the demonstration slides from this PDF version. So it will just explain step by step what I just did in the demonstration. And please check listen your audios before uploading them. So as to be sure to have a nice quality audios, and so there, if there's a problem, you just untick it, and it prevents sending a bad quality audio or a mispronounced word onto comments. And once you send them, you can just listen to them on comments, and you will appear on the main page of Lingua Libre. You should. Are there any new questions? I'll just stop sharing my screen. I don't think there are new questions. So would you like to contribute to record a few words on Lingua Libre for the last minutes of this session? If you have any question while you're recording, you can ask them on the Etherpad, and I'll try to give you advice. Would it be possible to have a Wikidata Lexim generator, just adding the language? So I don't really see what you mean when you ask this question. Like a generator that fetches Lexims from Wikidata and to create lists of words to record? Yeah. So yes, that's a good question I see there. If your language is not currently on Lingua Libre, you can just ask the administrators, either on the chat room or on the administrators notice board, to add it, and it will just take a few minutes for us to add your language to Lingua Libre, as long as there's a Wikidata element for it. And you can also add it by yourself, but it's just that it will take a few steps to add it to edit it manually. Basically, just like when you create an element on Wikidata, and there's a gadget for administrators to just add quickly languages just using the Wikidata QID of the language. So if you have the name of languages you want to add to Lingua Libre, you're welcome to put them in the Etherpad, and we'll try to add them as quickly as possible. It can be right now, actually. For example, Hebrew. I think Hebrew is available on Wikidata. Sorry, on Lingua Libre. Yes, it is. The local QID for Hebrew on Lingua Libre is Q397. I'll just send it in there at the back. Are there plans to have Lingua Libre pronunciations auto-added to the English dictionary, like on the French-speaking one? We actually, I think, we tried by a few years ago, but some English dictionary contributors weren't happy about the possibility of people to record words in a language, even if they're not native speakers. But that's actually something we can work with, because as long as the speaker mentioned his or their level of proficiency in a language, if the community of a wiki only wants native speakers, for example, we can just change the code for this specific wiki to only upload, integrate native speakers' pronunciations on their wiki. Or we could also change the local template for audio records to display. That's actually what we did on the French dictionary like a few months ago. We added a parameter to specify the level of proficiency. For example, if it's just a beginner in this language, it can still be better than nothing to have their recording if the word didn't have any recording before, or if you have plenty of recordings for a word. Once you heard all the different accents or many different accents, it can be interesting to see how learners' accents are from different parts of the world. So the answer to the question about words spelled the same way but pronounced differently is parenthesis. For example, you can, for example, in French we have the letters F-I-L-S. It can be pronounced fils, for example. So it's just translated by son. So let's say child. So you just precise the meaning in parentheses, and when you record another one, it can be fil. So the plural of the word fil, which is a thread, you can just do it like this in the same language, of course. That's just for the example. So I think we're getting at the end of the presentation. I'll take last questions. But I think there are no questions left. So I'll just say thank you very much for having attended this talk, and I hope to see you soon on Lingua Libre. Goodbye.